It's 12 a.m. as I'm scripting this, and it's 2 a.m. as I'm recording this. Honestly, I just couldn't sleep because I ate a whole bunch of BS earlier today for the first time in like months. And so here we are now. We're reading chapter 1154 of the One Piece manga. Bro, them spoilers were ridiculous this week. I couldn't contain my excitement. But of course, agendas ran wild this week, so let's talk about it. I told you I would drop the chapter review way earlier and y'all didn't believe me. When are you guys gonna learn that when Gamblrr says something, it goes? Anyways, make sure to like and subscribe. I make these chapter reviews every week when a chapter comes out, and it's always a vibe. So don't miss out. Come join the club. Cover story is Yamato again. I'm just gonna skip past this one just because I know this chapter is super long. Just know I'm not impressed. The chapter's name is I Can't Even Die, and it immediately starts off with a recap to the Big Mom flashback on Elbaf. 63 years ago, Ja Rule, the oldest Ankh in the world, lost his partner, Joe. Alright, come on. His partner, if he's not his brother, what is this guy? That boy was struck down dead by the hands of a certain plus-size child. Her name was Linlin, and despite being a mere human, she left a large part of a giant island in ruins. She would later become Big Mom. Alright, pause real quick. I've been waiting to say this ever since they first quickly name dropped the Big Mom incident. Do you know how annoyed I was when I first watched her flashback? I don't mean to offend anyone when I say these next things, but this fat girl pulls up to an island with two literal legends and is too fat to not go without. She's too fat to go without food for a little bit of time and kills one of the biggest legends because of it. I watched that episode in utter disgust. Like, yeah, she couldn't control it, but that being in her nature was just ridiculous to me. How obnoxious can you be? And now seeing for the first time in a very long time that dumb face she was making, oh my goodness, I'm getting flashbacks, bro. The next year, Elbaf faced a string of tragedies. It was calamity after calamity. Sudden fires, windstorms, and bitter cold waves devastated the crops. The abnormal weather also brought fishing to a halt. This is how Elbaf had fallen into famine. I'm not even gonna lie, when I read this part, I kinda started laughing because it reminded me of Dragon Ball Abridged when they were talking about the Namek famine, but this is actually deep. But they'll be fine, they're like 60 feet tall, bro, come on. In the next page, we see basically the same imagery as last chapter's double spread, with Estrid bedridden, and she tells the giant that what she said was true. It was all Loki's doing and the land is cursed because they failed to kill him immediately. As the giant is trying to cope about the idea of that, Loki somehow enters the room by breaking down the door. The reason I said somehow is because that boy Loki either low-diffed some guards to get to that specific room, or there were literally no guards. Funnily enough, Ezra tells guards that appear out of nowhere to take him away and to never let him get near her again. But it's kind of interesting to see the fact that the giants actually don't handle him with the same distaste as the mother does, because he is a prince. She tells them to poke his eyes out because of the curse it holds, but of course, they never do that. They literally try to tell the newborn baby to get the heck back. Elbaf is still going through the famine, and we see some giants discussing the desire to take from the humans, but a voice of reason brings up the fact that Elbaf isn't the way it was before. That act of selfishness would only bring shame to the nation. On the same page, however, it seems instead of attacking everyone else, the conflict became internal and certain villages raided others for resources. Internal giant struggles weren't unheard of during desperate times, but these incidents only resulted in making the period more severe and bloody. The country was engulfed in chaos and misery. We see this old man yapping about how he heard a rumor about a prince being born in the castle, and right after he says that he's cursed. He stops Harudin's ship from sailing and tells him as the brother of Loki, he will take responsibility as a sacrifice for the curse Loki placed upon Elbaf. Honestly, this is outlandish. The famine done made literal giant crackheads. Ida asks what the heck he's talking about and informs him that Haruden is going to be the longest living man and that he's a cutie. The crackhead grabs her by the neck and is about to swing an axe at her, and Haruden just threatens him from afar. Wait, okay. Before we get to the next double spread, is this a joke? Ida just heard a crackhead say that her son will be made a sacrifice, and her response was that he's a cutie? Bro, who is this? No, like seriously, this is not the Ida I was vibing with last chapter. Ida before the baby would have low diffed him and yelled in his face. Nah, get her out of here, bro. Suddenly, King Harold arrives and says he's going to flatten the crackhead. Wow, he literally flattens the crackhead. Are we gonna skip past the fact that he's dead? Harold tells his people they should not fight amongst each other. He was informed about Loki's birth, but also the state of the kingdom, and so the allies he's made throughout his years have come together to aid them. Humans may be small, but their will aren't in the slightest, and we see a fleet of ships arriving at Elbaf, all with food for the giant warriors. Before Harold came back, Estrid actually died, and it stated that the entire time as she was bedridden, she kept declaring that the misfortune given to the kingdom is all attributed to the one and only birth of the Prince Loki. My boy Harold is crying at the death of Estrid. Last chapter, I was completely confused on why Harold would 1. Get with Estrid for the sole reason of culture, and 2. Actually abandon Ida and his son to have another son with her. Now I'm finding out he actually had a connection with her and it wasn't just him being forced. Elbaf honestly has some freaky stuff going on and I do not like this. What is this kingdom, bro? Love Island? The giants believed Estrid's passing was part of the curse as well. We see Harold for the first time hold his son in his hands and he's completely unmoved. Harold is actually still oblivious to what's been happening the entire time. He doesn't know how much Estrid hated Loki and the way Loki's been treated the entire time he wasn't there. It's stated that as early as a few months old, Loki gave up on love. Loki is like 5 months old and depressed, and his dad thinks it's because his mom died. We gotta honestly have a conversation here because this genuinely might be the worst, in quotations, good guy dad. His wife was pregnant, by the way, and he left for months while pregnant and months after she gave birth, only to come back and not be informed on anything. Oh, and by the way, he literally saw the crackhead attack Ida and his own son because of Loki. Either Harold is dumb or I'm missing something. I hope this is a me thing because this genuinely might be the fakest nice guy in the manga. Elbaf's winter soon came to a close and Harold continued his journeys. Restoring the nation and venturing across the seas continued to be prioritized while other things became an afterthought. Queen Estrid's older brother was appointed as Loki's personal steward. I'm telling you right now, the things I'm scripting is as I'm reading the chapter because I always go in basically blind, and it turns out I was completely correct. Harold is genuinely a terrible dad. Don't even get me started, bro. Let's just continue. Apparently Ida opened a tavern in the realm of the dead, and there she's safe because of the border created by the coastline. Her tavern is open to any and all customers, and she hopes that she'll even be of use to the king with her shop. Honestly, I hope this is the last time I have to voice his opinion, but wow, this relationship makes no sense. A couple years pass and Harold is at Jarul's house talking about a certain incident. Apparently Harold was at the reverie, but not conventionally. He was smuggled in as a guard of one of his friends who was a king that was invited, but he really couldn't get the answers he wanted because he would have been exposed. However, a murder happened and it switched the attention completely off of Harold. Jarul says being caught means that all the crap he was trying to learn would be the least of his worries. And then he mentions a story about a group of giants. Apparently they were named the Gamblrr Warhammer Company, and they were a group of giant shipwrights that armed themselves with warhammers. They got captured so long ago that Harold, as old as he is, thought it was a myth that they even existed. Jarul is of course older than anyone else, and he received their final letter that they all were captured and never seen again. There is insane lore here. Sadly, I'm not the type to go theorizing and connecting dots, but you guys can drop your craziness in the comments. I'll be going over them on my video on Sunday. Harold questions if the world government was responsible for the capture, and Jaru doesn't confirm it directly. He does say though that they definitely went against a strong opponent. To be blunt, the fact that Harold's plans haven't come to fruition yet isn't because of him specifically, and Harold senses that there must be lingering animosity against giants. I think this might be the reason Harold rips out his own horns, but we'll see eventually. Harold talks about a frozen army of giants somewhere in the world and comes to the conclusion that giants are viewed as enemies of the larger world. But he's determined and has great resolve, enough to face any hurdle in the way of his mission. Loki with his uncle is clearly being abused. He's incredibly sad that his sister died and believes wholeheartedly that he was the one who put the curse on her, and so we see him outright admitting to giving him garbage to eat. Years pass and we find out the weird horse from last chapter died, and then even more years pass and the uncle died as well. 48 years before the present now, the villagers grew closer in terms of trade and identity, and the nation stood together. We see Harold voice his dream to join hands with many other countries around the world, for the giant race is to be welcome all over the grand world. In the same double spread, we see the crowd acknowledging how much Harold has changed and the fact that he is the greatest king Elbaf has ever seen. And then we see two of Loki's lackeys talking down on Haruden, calling him an illegitimate throwaway, and that Loki is the true heir, and we see Haruden crying while Loki is smiling. That boy went from wanting love to showing none. I was wondering how the dynamics switched between them. Loki is then shown just terrorizing the people on Elbaf, unleashing complete chaos on random villages, and the narrator tells us he was driven by scorn. Loki is basically the old life of Elbaf in giant form. Now everything is so peaceful and it will continue to be that way, and Loki's basically the only one who doesn't like it at all. We actually heard this firsthand from bro at the beginning of the flashback. I guess some things never change. Haruden tries to confront Loki, telling him to see other people's perspectives, but Loki beats the dude up for claiming he doesn't have the right to be cocky just because he's big. I see what's going on here. We've got Haruden who's taking on that new Herald act, and Loki with the old Herald act. Honestly, it would have been cool to see how exactly Harold grew up, but this will make sense in a second. Everyone comes to aid Haruden, and as he's hurt, Loki makes fun of him, telling him that it's because of his mother's blood that he's so pathetic. One of Loki's lackeys tries to say that Haruden is also a prince since he's a son of the king, but before he can fully say it, Loki hits him. Loki's pain spread and destruction, but nothing he did filled the hole in his own heart. We see a giant mom holding her child who's been hurt by Loki probably, and Loki holding back tears at the sight of it. We see an image of the underworld and Loki taking the exact same fall he did as a baby, and he's crying at the bottom of the fall, saying he can't even die. I'm not even gonna lie, this hurt, like badly. I obviously heard about this, but reading it in complete context and thinking about everything it reminds me of, damn, Oda really got me here. This is actually really reminding me of Sukuna. I'm pretty sure I referred to this last chapter, and it was actually about Loki's appearance being rejected, and then this is literally the cherry on top. I might actually have to make that a video because the parallels here are very uncanny. The final double spread of the chapter starts with a mountain being chopped in half and someone asking what the heck is wrong with the island. Where's the entrance? The person in question finds the weeping Loki, and we see some others. Golden Lion Shiki mentions his demonic face, and Edward Newgate notices how insanely big he is. Alright kid, you better say yes to both of these questions. I ain't the type to take no for an answer. Harold spotted this man 8 years ago during the reverie. He single-handedly killed an admiral and vanished without a trace. This feat earned him a massive bounty and the government's ire. First off, this is Elbaf, the land of the giants, right? And second, we'll find Harold here, yeah? We see him. Rocks D. Zebek. It's 2 AM, so I have to contain my excitement, but this was huge. Zebek has literally been a silhouette for years, and I cannot believe I'm here to say I and millions of others were here to witness the reveal of him. The guy looks exactly like Blackbeard, And the reason for that was the fact that he is literally Blackbeard's father. And the chapter ends. Dog. Alright. There's a ton to talk about, but let's address the elephant in the room. Rocks wiped an admiral off the map. This is the first admiral in the entire series to die, compared to like the other 3 Yonkos, but that's besides the point. After the spoilers dropped and we found out that an admiral was killed, the agenda was ridiculous on Twitter, and of course it was. That's what agenda is all about. The common consensus right now is that a rookie Zebek pulled up to the Holy Land and killed an admiral and got away unscathed. Let me say that again. A rookie Zebek pulled up to the Holy Land, killed an admiral, and got away unscathed. There's a couple things to know here. First off, that boy Zebek killed the admiral during the reverie, and unironically, Oda literally set the precedent for us. We know how admirals are supposed to act when they attend the reverie. They cannot go all out. Not only is there less likely to be a two-faced admiral like Fujitora, who literally helped the slaves escape the Holy Land, but the literal punishment for any of the celestial dragons being hurt is them being killed. Honestly, I have to voice this. The talks online were so annoying. They're telling me that what Oda was trying to illustrate to us using this fight is that the admirals have terrible AP and don't have control over their DC. Which makes sense. It does make sense. As a stupid power scaler. Oda literally has CP0 tell us what the point of the fight is. The admirals are nerfed because they are on the Holy Land. That's it. But this isn't the only thing that needs to be kept in mind for the Zebek thing, because this isn't me saying that Zebek only killed the admiral just because he was nerfed. I don't doubt that Zebek is that guy, and I'm willing to grant him the fact that he is, because I think we can all agree that he really is. It's just the weirdness that surrounds the incident. Why was Zebek there, and how did he get there? We don't know the why, but Oda has also set 2 precedents for getting into the Holy Land. One being a king who's invited to Mary Joie, or 2, sneaking in. Rocks is Blackbeard's father. They look and act the same. Can we take a wild guess as to how this kind of incident could have happened? He literally vanished after the fact, and the murder was the thing that drew attention. Not the fight. The murder. I think I've seen this movie before. Luckily we're not on break, and so next week we'll most likely find out the answer, but I mean, come on. I have to have faith in this because some of you guys have a track record of just being wrong. When we saw Fujitora with bandages after the reverie, it was, oh my gosh, admirals suck, a few good men. But as soon as the context dropped, the agenda disappeared. Then Kizaru got, in quotations, one shot by Luffy, and I from the very beginning talked about the mental nerf. We had to endure almost a year of BS just for Kizaru to start crying, and then months after that, Oda confirming that Kizaru fed Luffy. And here we are again, basically the exact same scenario, but this time, it doesn't matter. Zebek is utterly above the Yonko. Despite not having a bounty, he can be insanely strong. Mind you, Blackbeard, even though he's been on Whitebeard's crew since childhood and has been fighting with the crew, had no bounty but scarred shanks. Zebek also has no established crew but had Whitebeard, Shiki, and Stussy following him for whatever reason. Also, I think we all skip past this, but he's clearly the oldest top tier. We really don't know where to draw the line between prime and then like old age and like younger years, right? Garp in his, in quotations, prime, everybody can agree is the one with the gray hair. But the same can't be said about like Gabon or Rayleigh, right? Regardless of that fact, we have him with both black and gray hair here, right? So it's either he entered his prime after the fact, which kind of goes against what you guys been saying all this time about old men, or he was in his prime before when he killed the admiral. Regardless of that fact, he entered the God's Valley incident where he lost to a younger Garp and Roger, the same Garp who went on to enter his prime and train Aokiji to his physical level. There's really no losing for the Admiral agenda here, to be honest, because even if the Admiral lost outright, he still doesn't compare to the current gen Admirals. I can already see the comments calling this cope, and to be honest, I don't really care. So far, almost everything I've said was a fact, and if it wasn't, there's a good amount of evidence to support the thought. Anyways, this chapter is an easy 10 out of 10. This might be the best one in all of Elbaf. Emotions had me all over the place while scripting. Honestly, the video on Saturday is just going to be super fun to make. Anyways, what did you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.